So let's look at how this scheme plays out in the real world right now. Nida Sultan was fatally shot in the chest by Iranian police during the June protests in Iran last year. Her plight was captured by a mobile phone camera and uploaded as a 37-second clip to YouTube, whereupon it was broadcast by CNN, CBS News, NBC News, Sky News, and in part on Channel 9. On the 8th of July 2009, ACMA declared that this clip is prohibited content on the internet in Australia after assessing it as R18+ with no restricted access system. So if you go to YouTube, then you're viewing this content without adult verification according to ACMA's guidelines. So in their opinion, this clip is prohibited content on the internet in Australia. Now YouTube is mostly hosted overseas, so the effect of that under the present regime is minimal. If YouTube were to host that video within Australia's borders, then ACMA would be compelled to issue a takedown notice on them to have them remove this video from the internet. That's under the current scheme. I could play the video, but I noticed that there's someone recording it and is planning to upload this presentation to YouTube. If I show this video and that's on a YouTube presentation, then this video itself will become prohibited content again. So I won't show the video. Now, you'll get no argument from me if you assert that in your family, by your decision, in your personal circumstances, the clip is unsuitable for unsupervised children. But when we consider that the law thinks a 17-year-old is a child, we enter a grey area. And if the government mandates outright blocking of such content, then we're going to have a fight on our hands. That clip can't be hosted on the internet in Australia. Is that defensible? The only reason the clip exists is because of a political protest. Is Australia the kind of country that suppresses depictions of political protest? What about refused classification blocking? Well, in January, ACMA vowed and declared that the imagery on a website called abortiontv.com was refused classification. They maintained that view until the 28th of April, when the classification board said it was actually R18+. Now, the appeal process here was a bit tangential. Remember, as a citizen, none of us can cause ACMA to have a second look at something that they've already assessed. So once ACMA has said that the stuff on abortiontv.com was refused classification, none of us can go to ACMA and say, well, we think you're wrong. But abortiontv.com is offshore. You can host a link in Australia to abortiontv.com and then ask ACMA whether the link is prohibited content. And because the link is hosted in Australia, ACMA can't do anything about it without getting the classification board to weigh in. So they have to then send the submitted content to the classification board, get them to assess it, and when ACMA did this, even though ACMA had vowed and declared in the Parliament that the imagery on that website was refused classification and other imagery on other websites that was similar had also been refused classification, the classification board came in and said, well, actually, no, it's R18+, so you were wrong. Now, under the present proposal, this content would be blocked by your ISP upon ACMA's incorrect say-so. Who watches the watchers? How does one get a government department that is wrong to reassess when you have no ability to appeal? Meanwhile, of course, at the same time ACMA was insisting in the Parliament that the imagery was refused classification and prohibited, protesters were carrying exactly the same photos through Melbourne's streets because Victoria was going through a process of legalising abortion. So don't pretend that refused classification doesn't hoover up political speech, and don't pretend that refused classification or prohibited content is the same as illegal. They are different concepts, and anyone who understands Venn diagrams can probably see what that's getting at. Like, refused classification is illegal in the same way that houses have basements and dogs have rabies. You know, there's a subset that is, but The vast majority of it, no. So to recap, we have lots of different independent classification systems in Australia. They all do roughly the same thing. So a question you might want to ask is whether it's necessary to have a single mandated system given all of the demonstrably successful examples of non-government classification. Does the government need to be involved? Do we even necessarily want the government involved? An observation I would make is that the internet censorship debate and the R18 plus computer games debate means that public opposition to the current scheme is more vocal than it has ever been at any point in time in the past. Meanwhile, we're in a world where we have more access to media and information about media content than ever before. We are all educated, savvy media consumers, every last one of us, even children. So the question should be, what value is the government adding here? What are they for? Let's go back to Mad Max. According to IMDb, it's received over 20 different classifications from different agencies around the world, all saying roughly the same thing. It's been banned outright in 2 jurisdictions, and then the bans were later reversed without their respective societies falling apart. So what purpose were the bans serving? Who was actually harmed when the film was unbanned? Do you know anyone that's been harmed by watching Mad Max? What value is our classification board's R18 plus rating adding when the UK, Ireland, Italy, Argentina, Canada 3 times, France, New Zealand twice, Norway, South Korea, Spain, the USA, West Germany and Finland have already said it's suitable for 18-year-olds? Does it matter whether Australia says it's also suitable for 18-year-olds? And if Singapore, the Netherlands, Argentina and France say it's okay for their 16-year-olds, are Australian 16-year-olds so emotionally feeble that they'll be damaged if they happen to see it? Argentina is interesting. They classified the film as X originally, and then they classified a cut version as suitable for 18-year-olds in 1982. And then they looked at the uncut version again in 1999 and said that was okay for 16-year-olds. Did the people who said it was unsuitable for 16-year-olds in 1979 apologise? No. You may laugh at that example, but Australia has done the same thing to a film called Salo. It was banned from its 1978 release until 1993. Then it was rated R until 1997, and then it was banned again from 1997 until now. We're currently the only country in the entire world to ban that film. It's refused classification. You can go and download it from BitTorrent and see the classification board's rating. So there's a multiplicity of ratings which all provide useful guidance even if Australia doesn't do anything at all. So I repeat, what value is the classification board adding? Another useful case in point, Netherlands only has 3 classifications for all of their media. They have a classification which means illegal, they have a classification that means suitable for children, and a classification that means suitable for anything over and above 15. So does that mean that their 17-year-olds are more robust than our 17-year-olds in that we need a special rating to tell the difference between stuff that's good for 17 and good for 18? I don't think so. Are Australians more emotionally fragile than Spaniards, or does it mean the classification board is wrong and probably consequently useless